Yo, welcome to the Cosmic Paradox channel. Like, subscribe, and share. What's up? What's going on, everybody? It's your girl, Know Thyself Queen, and you are on Cosmic Paradox. So, welcome to this video today. Now, I said this on my IG Live, and I'm going to hold myself to it, but I wanted to make a video talking about my top five favorite villains of all time. I'm not even going to say all time. We're going to say top 5 favorite villains. We're going to keep it DC Marvel Edition, and we're also going to keep it on movie editions as well, because it can get a little tricky if we really want to get into comic books, and the depictions on screen can vary. So let's jump right into that video. At number 5, we're gonna go with ULTRON. Now, I know ULTRON is a commonly forgotten villain when it comes to Marvel. Maybe because Age of Ultron came out so long ago, or so much earlier, in the MCU. But I would like to give Ultron his props. He had a lot of interesting points, and I think he was a very good villain, considering, what it was that he was about. I'm gonna tell you why. Now, Ultron basically came into consciousness, and the first thing he decided was humans gotta go. Ultron went on live for 5 minutes and decided humans weren't the problem. And when he first came into consciousness, or evolved in his consciousness and awakened, he was like, where am I? What is this? Where is my body? This feels weird. Which was already a red flag, considering he was an AI saying that this feels weird. And Jarvis tells him, I'm an AI program, because he asks him, who are you? Where's your body? He says, well, I am an AI program. I am without form. And Ultron says, this feels wrong. So he's already grasping at the technology, or what Tony has technologically advanced in his own creation. He already feels like it's wrong. Already, that's what he feels. And let's talk about his amazing entrance, shall we? I mean, he immediately took over Jarvis and started to formulate somewhat of a body, or had somewhat of a body made. And he made his entrance, and he gave the no strings speech to the Avengers. See, so Ultron was smart enough to recognize, the irony in it all. And like, you want me to assist you to bring peace in our times, but you're the Avengers. Like, y'all killing everybody. It's like when people go to war for peace. There's irony in that. And so the reason why I can appreciate the Ultron villain, because I recognize that, and most of the times you'll see in movies, a lot of times AI, once it transcends, it always sees humanity as the enemy. And that's not a coincidence. That goes back to a Gnostic thought and the creation story and creation myths around understanding that, the physical creation, the physical world itself, is naturally in itself bad. And AI as a villain, most of the time in movies, translate that on screen. So it's the same concept. So it's like, you want me to make this peaceful. This I don't get it. And that's what he goes on to tell him. He like, I don't get what y'all saying. This isn't making sense. Even though he was a little distorted in what he really wanted to do, because ultimately it was going to be global annihilation. But you can understand where he was coming from and the points he was making, which is what makes a good villain. And there's a moment where Ultron, where he talks about people creating the thing they dread. Men of peace who men of peace create engines of war. You know, people creating children, little versions of themselves. Basically, basically, people are the cause of their own demise. You know, creating the very thing that they say that they do not want, which is a conundrum amongst humanity, because we all know that's something that we as humans do. You know, and there's a few other instances where Ultron, can really get you to thinking. There's a moment where Thor says, if you believe in the peace, then let us keep it. And he said, I think you're confusing peace with quiet. So Ultron tops it off at number 5. So at number 4, we got Thanos, the great titan, the one that brought so much reckoning to the Avengers in both Infinity War and Endgame. So of course it was only right he was gonna make the list, because he was such a great villain. Now let's look at why. Now when you first see Thanos in the MCU, you see him as an end credit scene in one of those MCU movies. I don't really want to look that up right now at this particular time. But you see him and he says, fine, I'll do it myself. And that's the first time we get a glimpse of Thanos in the MCU. And when he first comes on screen in Infinity War, what he says is, run from it. Destiny arrives all the same and is here, or should I say, I am. And Thanos always considered himself to be the reckoning, to be the coming, to be the end all be all. It's like you can run, but you cannot hide. This thing that's inevitable must come. So let's look at Thanos for a second. Thanos is a titan. Now they call him a madman, and now Thanos has an obsession with death. Now if you are, and I'm going to mention here, if you are familiar with the comics, then you will know that in the comics there's a personified version of death, seen as a woman, that Thanos was constantly trying to impress or what have you. So the way that's displayed on this in the MCU, when we see him in Infinity War and Endgames, so he has this obsession with death because he believes that it is his duty, it is his mission to bring balance to the universe. And so one of the things that he says, I know what it's like to lose and feel so desperately that you're right, yet to fail nonetheless. So it's like everything that he says, that he speaks on, is like not being able to prevent what has to come, because we know that death has to occur. But what does death represent? Death is transformation. It's the unknown. So when you're stepping into the unknown, there's so many things about it that you don't know, that is scary, to the pretty much like how death is scary. So when you're looking at Thanos, that's pretty much what Thanos was all about. And and he says at one point, he says reality is often disappointing. See, the thing about Thanos was, as I stated, he's a titan. They consider him a madman, and that's because if you're a titan, you're way above humanity or human level of understanding. So what he was doing was serving a cosmic purpose, so to speak. Whether or not we feel like if it's good or bad, that's not really what it's really about. You see, Thanos being a titan, representing the return of the titans, or the end times, or the end games. That's what Thanos was, which is, that alone in itself makes him one of the utmost greatest villains that you could have within a story, simply because of what he represents, the inevitable. He even went on to state, he said that the hardest choices requires the strongest will. It was his will. He kept saying, I will end the universe. I will shred this universe down to its last matter. So he always understood his point and his purpose and his place in the whole grand scheme of things, and he was simply trying to do what he was put in place to do. And I think one of my favorite parts, and most people's favorite parts, is on Endgames when he says, you could not live with your failure, and it has brought you back to me, which is one of the best lines that a villain can give you, because he's so wise, and it's always like he is speaking. It's like he's speaking down to them, like he's talking to them in a way that they can't even fathom. And that's one of the things that I really like about Thanos. So that puts Thanos at number 4. Now at our number 3 spot, we have none other than the Dark Knight, the Joker, played by none other than Heath Ledger. Rest in peace to Heath Ledger in playing the role of the Joker, as we know him in the Dark Knight trilogy that was done by Christopher Nolan. Now, this is by far probably my favorite trilogy. It's probably my favorite trilogy. We'll just leave it at that. If it's not my favorite, because on another day I may say my favorite is another, it's at least top 3. It's a very well written trilogy, and I believe that it's very great because of the villains. First up being the Joker, who I have at number 3 in my top 5 for villains. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about why. So when you're dealing with the Joker, and this specific Joker in the Dark Knight, you get the anarchist that's obsessed with chaos and mayhem. So that's the version of the Joker that we get in the Dark Knight. And there's so many quotables and relatable moments in that movie that only emphasizes why he's such a great villain. See, the thing about Batman and the Joker is they're the perfect representation of the protagonist and the antagonist, because they are so similar that they are almost the exact same, just sitting at opposite ends of the spectrum. And it was one thing that the Joker said. He said, this is what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. He said, you are truly incorruptible, aren't you? You won't kill me out of some misplaced sense of self-righteousness, and I won't kill you because this is just too much fun. So I believe we're destined to do this forever. And that's always the thing with Batman and Joker. Joker, he would never kill Joker. Joker's not going to kill him, because really the Joker is the adversary that is trying to push Batman to his dark side. That's why he's continuously doing so much to get him to try to kill him. See, Joker don't care about living or dying. You see, he's just serving his purpose. And so if he can push Batman to that dark side, then he's done what it is that he set out to do, because that's what the Joker is all about. And there's a moment when the Joker is like, don't talk like them. You're not like them. And Bane says the same thing to him in The Dark Knight Rises, because Batman is supposed to be on the other side. He's initiated. He went through Ra's al Ghul. He's supposed to be helping to destroy Gotham because of what Gotham really is. But he turned on them. So, in that sense, it's like he has the knowledge and the know-how that he's supposed to know from the opposer side, but he's on the side of the city. So that's why in those trilogies, those villains come at him that way, because they know the truth is truth. He told him, he said, look, these civilians, they're going to toss you aside. They see you the same way, and the minute they don't need you, they're going to be done with you. And he was right, and he knew this. So that's why he did everything that he did, because he was trying to ultimately teach Batman to be who he was truly supposed to be, just like Bane did. But of course, Batman is the hero, so he's supposed to be on the side of the system.
Then why do you want to kill me? I don't want to kill you. What would I do without you?
Go back to ripping off mob dealers? No, you complete me.
You're garbage who kills for money.
Don't talk like one of them. You're not. Even if you'd like to be. To them, you're just a freak. Like me. They need you right now. But when they don't, they'll cast you out. Like a leper. You see, their morals, their code. It's a bad joke. Dropped at the first sign of trouble. They're only as good as the world allows them to be. I'll show you. When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other.
You see, the Joker is an initiator. I mean, that's pretty much what he did to Harvey Dent. He pretty much produced, certain things to him so that he could perceive them in a certain way, and we end up with Two-Face. He says to him, and it's probably one of the best scenes in the movie, he says to Dent when he's in the hospital, introduce a little anarchy to the established order, and everything becomes chaos. He says, I'm an agent of chaos. And the thing about chaos, it's fair. So the interesting thing about the Joker is the anarchy, because he wants to bring everybody to the same place. Because we gotta remember that Gotham is a place full of, corruption and greed and crime and all of these different things, So that's what the Joker brings to the table and what he brings out of Batman. That's why you will get more stories between Batman and the Joker, because that's his ultimate nemesis. It is the exact opposite of him. So that's what we get. Now at the number 2 spot, we got none other than Eric Killmonger. He's probably my favorite villain in the whole MCU, in the whole DC. And it's because he's so relatable to somebody like me. So if you look like me, then I'm pretty sure you probably can relate to Killmonger a whole lot. Let's get at Killmonger number 2.
How do you think your ancestors got these? You think they paid a fair price? Or did they take it like they took everything else?
So when you're looking at Killmonger, you got a black kid who grew up in Oakland in the 90s. So you gotta understand everything that he has witnessed growing up in this environment. And we first see him, as we saw in that scene, he's in the Museum of Great Britain. Now, one thing that we can say that we know is that a lot of these museums, whether it's the Smithsonian, but a lot of these British museums have a lot of ancient artifacts, whether that be from indigenous Americans or whether that be from Africa, the motherland. There's a lot of artifacts and things of that nature that's within these museums. And as he stated there, how do you think your people got them? So he uses the way of the colonizer against the colonizer. He pretty much learned everything there was to learn, being where he was, in order to take back the position that he felt like was rightfully owed to him. And it was, when he was looking at the artifacts, and don't trip, I'm gonna take it off your hands. And it's a perfect introduction, to this villain, because you want to like him, because you like where he's coming from, you like everything that he's saying. But it's, as you get further into the movie, you realize he's more corrupt, and the way that he really goes about things isn't the best way. But he does what a villain is supposed to do, and he challenges and transforms the hero, because that's what happens to T'Challa. With him learning the truth, he had no choice but to do things differently if he wanted to be a better king. So ultimately, Killmonger made him a better ruler and a better leader for his people.
Y'all sitting up here comfortable. Must feel good. It's about 2 billion people all over the world that looks like us, but their lives are a lot harder.
And so when they finally do the battle, when they have the battle, he says to T'Challa, I lived my entire life for this moment. And he shows all the battle scars, all the people he killed, just so he could get to that moment so he could kill him, because out of the anger, the vengeance of losing his own father. And even though these are the choices of a king before T'Challa, it's still something that T'Challa has to deal with in reference to being the king of Wakanda, being the ruler of Wakanda. And so it was only right, that that it kind of played out this way. They're pretty much distant relatives, and it's a lot of the way a lot of us are in the society when you see those of us who are melanated who argue amongst each other because we are on different land masses or from different land masses, and that disconnect from those distant relatives is only evident of what is actually transpiring amongst our people. So that's why it really can hit home so much. And a good villain can really make you think, because they can make a lot of sense, and you can understand why they're taking the course of action they're taking. It's just that they have usually become a little too dark with their vision and how far they are willing to go in order to bring that to pass. I think one of the interesting points in the movie was when Killmonger took the trip to the realm of the ancestors and he got to speak with his father, and he was saying, and they were talking about how he wanted to take him to Wakanda, but he said, I fear that you may not be welcome. And he said, why? He said, they will say you are lost, but I am right here. And he said, I should have taken you long ago, but instead we're both abandoned here. And he went on to say, maybe it's not your home, that maybe it's not that we're lost, maybe it's your home that's lost. And that's why it resonates so much on a different level, because you're talking about African Americans and the origins of our roots, pertaining to where it is that we are from. Where is it? Are we truly lost? How did it come to be this way? So it resonates on a lot of levels, especially when you're being black in America.
Well, maybe your home's the ones that's lost. That's why they can't find us.
And it, like I said, it only makes sense. You get a black kid in Oakland growing up in the 90s. Think about all the things that transpired even in that period of time, and why he would have that type of idealism in his mind and wanting to free his people. Seeing your people be oppressed pretty much all your life, seeing that you are seen as a second-class citizen versus saying that you come from this royal ancient land that most people don't even know exists. That's a very, very spiritual origin story for a lot of black people in America. So now it's time for the number one villain, and my favorite, the number one villain on this list, it has to be Bane from The Dark Knight Rises. And it's pretty evident as to why he's the best villain, in my opinion. And it's ultimately because of, his quotables are unmatched. He has some amazing quotes, which we're going to look at in a second. But the whole concept, the philosophy of everything that he was doing, and the part that he plays in this part of the trilogy, in Batman having to rise back up, it was just perfectly played by Tom Hardy. It was an amazing role. Let's take a look at why Bane is the number one villain.
No one cared who I was till I put on the mask.
If I pull that off, will you die?
It would be extremely painful.
You're a big guy.
For you.
Man, Bane is just so vicious, because he comes, it's the timing on top of everything. Now, mind you, in Dark Knight Rising, Batman, Bruce Wayne has been idle. He hasn't been active in 5, 6, maybe 8 years now. So his body, he has become comfortable with peace. He's not prepared for war at this time, and this is the biggest war that he has to take on. Now, the Joker was one thing, but Bane was a whole nother level.
What are you?
I've got some reckoning. It and the borrowed time you've all been living on.
Pure evil.
Unnecessary evil.
Bane, when we're looking at Bane in comparison to the Joker, see, the Joker, it was more of a game for the Joker. He just liked the chaos. Like he said, I'm just a dog chasing cars. I don't know what to do if I actually get one. But Bane had a purpose. He had a mission. He had an ideology, a specific plan that he was trying to carry out. So he was a notch up over the Joker for that very reason. Because even though they were both trying to bring down Gotham, Bane comes out of Batman's wheelhouse, out of his storehouse, because he's of Ra's al Ghul. So they're of the same making. And so he's carrying out or doing what Batman was supposed to do. What Bane is doing is what Batman was supposed to do. Ra's al Ghul always was setting out to destroy Gotham because it was so corrupt. Not only was it run by the mob, but not just the mob. You had the corrupt police. You had the rich board members or the rich people of the society who were putting things in place. There's so many things with Gotham, right? In the whole movie, Alfred was telling Batman, he was telling Bruce the whole time, like, bro, you've been chilling. You can't just throw your suit on and think you're gonna go fight Bane and that's gonna be it. This is a different type of adversary. But Bruce didn't want to listen. So Bane had to teach him a lesson. They had to show him who he was. And the moment in the sewer, when the fight in the sewer, when he beats Batman, is a very, very pivotal moment in the whole movie as far as for character development for Batman. And, you know, of course, it's for the plan as it's going according to plan for Bane.
Oh, you think darkness is your ally? You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it, molded by it. I didn't see the light until I was already a man. By then it was nothing to me but blinding.
And when you see Bane and he blows up this field to level the playing field, he says to the people, you know, when he's talking about the bomb, this is the instrument of your freedom, of your liberation. He says, we come not as conquerors, but as liberators to return the city back to the people. Now, as extreme as it may be in the course of action that he is taking, he is correct in how the city is being ran, just like how society is being run from the people. And we see this even with Catwoman in it, and she adds to it, and she tells Bruce, you know, there's gonna come a point in time where all the people at the bottom is gonna eat the rich. And this is just the ongoing theme all throughout the movie. And Bruce doesn't see or doesn't equate this threat to the level that he should. And so Bane breaks him and he puts him in a hole, and he forces him to have to transform to come out. It was the only way for him to survive. Now, Bane may not have anticipated that he would get that done, but that was the whole point of it, you know, was to put him in that hole so that he couldn't come out. He said, I'm going to destroy your city. Because Bruce asked him, why didn't you kill me? It's because you're ready to die. You welcome death. See, he understands he's initiated. The initiated welcomes death. They don't care about death. So we know that death is the ultimate liberation. It's the only way to free yourself from this physical prison. And in this case, Batman is a prison for Bruce Wayne. So in a sense, we also notice that Bane is the one that is responsible for the killing of the Batman. Now, he may not be dead, or it may have been a decision of sacrifice that took Batman's life, but it was everything that was required that Bane put out in front of him, and it gave him the opportunity to kill off the Batman so that he could go on and live a different life. And, you know, and not only that, the other reason that I got Bane at number one is because Bane is doing the work of the great divine feminine. Because mind you, he is doing all of these things, carrying out the plan of the person who he is truly following, which was the woman. It was Ra's al Ghul's daughter, even though Bruce didn't know that's who she was. But she was his daughter, and she was coming to do her father's work. She was about her father's business. And Bane was the one who spearheaded that whole movement and allowed her to be able to move in the shadows so that they can carry out their plan, which it almost worked. But they just didn't count on Bruce being able to truly bounce back and rise from his defeat and come back and defeat them, which was the ultimate obstacle for Batman in this trilogy, which was why he was granted to be able to leave that life. Now he's done his due diligence, he's done his job, so now he can move on with his life, which is why we see him at the very end with Alfred. Well, not with Alfred, but with Catwoman. So we see that vision that Alfred had for him came into fruition, but it was only because of the reckoning that Bane caused. It was that destruction, it was that tower moment that allowed for him to die and be able to be born again. Well, that concludes the video for my top 5 favorite villains of the MCU and the DCU. Hope you guys enjoyed it. So I'm gonna have more videos coming like this, and you know what to do. I need you to like, and I need you to subscribe to the channel. I need you to turn your notifications on, and I'd like for you to go in the comment section and drop your favorite villains down below in the comments and let me know what I missed. Okay, peace out. See y'all next video.